Okay guys, I botched it again. It's supposed to say Suicide Squad at the top of the screen like it does right now. So sometimes they make mistakes just like directors when they make stuff like Suicide Squad. And in any case, enjoy the video. Okay guys, welcome back to another edition, another episode of Rotten Reviews. On this episode, I'm going to be taking a look at Suicide Squad. Now this movie came out in 2016 and it kind of goes against my vibe of wanting to review older movies 10 years or more to get a more accurate feel for how they've aged. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and do Suicide Squad because it seems that I see so much controversy out there. I see so much divisiveness and so much disagreement on whether or not this is rotten, and even amongst the fans of the DC comics universe that agree that it's rotten, they can't agree on why it's rotten. To me, not being, a big DC cinematic universe fan, the movie came across fine. I enjoyed it. I didn't see it in the theater. I saw it on home video release on Blu-ray. I didn't pay for it, so again, I'm not offended that it wasn't a five-star movie for me. I thought it could have been better. It wasn't the best comic book movie. It wasn't the best comic book movie in the DC universe. But then again, I didn't think that highly of Man of Steel or Batman vs. Superman. I found them disappointing. This one, I didn't get that disappointing feeling from it. I thought it was an interesting thing I hadn't seen before. I had only vaguely heard of the Suicide Squad referenced in other DC material. For example, it was even referenced somewhat and used in the WB or CW show Smallville. So I know it from other things. Now, not being a big DCU comics fan, not knowing all the lore, I was not going to be offended if they took liberties with certain characters. And my feeling is this has become rotten in general and on Rotten Tomatoes because DC Cinematic Universe fans were expecting, they have this unwritten type of competitive feeling with the MCU, with Marvel. They wanted to see a film that would like beat back the MCU for them to prove that their DC Comics universe were somehow superior to Marvel, that it could top a Marvel movie of the time. And they weren't getting this even from Batman v Superman, for example. And so Suicide Squad, I thought a lot of these DC Comics fans really wanted this to prove that they could do better than Marvel, because certainly the trailers were edited in a way that was reminiscent of almost like that Marvel Guardians of the Galaxy feel, but a little bit different. So I think they thought this was going to be their Guardians of the Galaxy breakout hit of the DCEU. And it didn't turn out that way. And when people said they didn't enjoy it, they kind of backlashed even against themselves. And that's why you get the divisiveness and whatnot. They feel that they were let down. That's my theory. But going into this is just a regular, like, normie, as they say. I thought this was a decent movie. If I had paid to see this in the theater, I wouldn't have been upset with it. Now, I also know that it has been stated out there that this movie was specifically edited by a company that edits movie trailers. I thought the movie trailer for this, there were two, I believe, were fantastic. The movie was not as fantastic, but I can see how the way those trailers were shot and edited, that maybe it made sense on some level to put the editing in charge with the same people. It didn't work out, obviously. So I'm going to go in with an open mind, and I'm going to attempt to find out just why they think this thing is so rotten, why it's so divisive. So let's get right into it. Again, if I had to give this a star rating, I would give it 2.5, maybe close to 3 stars. I'm not quite to 3 stars, but I would give it 2.5 fairly. So let's see. We have 0.5 star. The plot is all over the place and mostly incoherent. I didn't get that feeling from it, but I got the feeling that they tried to put a lot of things in here at the same time, and there wasn't enough time left to, get a better backstory and all these different characters being thrown together. So I thought it was trying to do too much. So that's my opinion on that. 5 stars, absolutely superb. Well, there's somebody that definitely doesn't agree with the haters. 0.5 star, not even made it to the end. So somebody, they were offended enough where hopefully they didn't pay for a ticket, but they didn't make it to the end. 2.5 stars. Loved Harley, but other characters were bad. Will Smith and Margot Robbie did good work. I'll say that just coming into this from a non-DC Comics fan point of view, yeah, Margot Robbie was the selling point. Her sex appeal, that was capitalized in the trailers. They probably should have just made this a movie with just her and one or two other characters, but instead they threw a lot of different characters in there, and there's not enough time to get to feel who they are. Like, as a non-DC Comics fan, I didn't recognize most of these characters. I knew who Deadshot was just from other movies that he's been in as a villain way back in the day, but I didn't really know anything about his backstory. They didn't really tell us a lot, and I kind of just went in with these superficial versions of what I know aren't superficial characters in the comics. So that's why I think, it angered a lot of DC fanboys. And yeah, I said fanboys. 2 stars. Suicide Squad yielded a cast of A-plus list actors barely holding up the weight of a clumsy narrative lacking a clear focus. It relied heavily on the talent of the cast and wrote the characters thinly. Its graphic technique and comic book stylization came across tacky and juvenile rather than clever. Characters were there for convenience and were derived of any individual development. Even the major players, Deadshot and Harley Quinn, were given so-so character arcs. Yeah, that's what I was saying. They were the two most prominent characters, just as a normie, and we still didn't get too much on their background or what made them who they were. If they had changed at the end, we didn't get a sense of that because we didn't know who they were at the beginning. 1 star. Genuinely laughed at this movie, and not in a good way. Some of the dialogue was ridiculous. I live underground, y'all are just tourists, is a prime example. However, you could argue that it fit in with Killer Croc's character. I would argue that with this, if he had had a character, and this flaw is shared with every other character in the movie, except maybe Will Smith as Deadshot. Overall, I cannot recommend this movie for its poor direction, passable acting, and terrible writing. However, it is okay. So again, they're saying the characters weren't characterized. Okay. 0.5 star. I feel like people who are fans of the comics hated the movie. I'm one of these people. People who hadn't seen Harley Quinn before probably liked the movie. Now, I'll agree with that. I didn't know anything about her. Now, I had seen Harley Quinn in the Arkham Knight video game, which I highly enjoyed. But I didn't know anything about her there. I just know of her existence before I went into this movie. And it didn't upset me, but again, I didn't know if she even had a character arc because I didn't know enough about how she became Harley Quinn. 0.5 star. If a person liked this film, it's because that person is from the 1800s. Well, they'd certainly be old. 3.5 stars. A different take on superhero movies that I enjoyed. 0.5 star. Jared Leto unable to make a character that everyone else is capable of getting a great performance out of. Work. Director bottles it. I think they mean the director botched it. Yeah, a lot of people, I've heard them say that they really detest Jared Leto's performance as the Joker. The Joker's barely in this movie, just as a reference or sounding board against Harley Quinn. He's not really directly involved in the plot here. He wasn't off-putting to me. He didn't offend me because I've seen the Joker done in so many weird ways, and the point about the Joker being that I had never seen an origin story on the Joker ever in video game or in film form, except for maybe the 1989 Batman movie that, just showed him as falling into a vat of chemicals and losing his mind. Other than that, the Joker to me was always a mysterious character. I wasn't wanting to know what his origin was. So when Jared Leto came out and played him, it wasn't any more offensive to me than when Heath Ledger played him. Because Heath Ledger, as lauded as he was for his portrayal of the Joker, he didn't make any attempt to show you why he was the Joker. You just got him as the Joker right from the start. So it doesn't rub me the wrong way about the Joker. 4 stars. I think this movie has a bad rap. It's visually darkly beautiful in a way that suits the movie's tone. With as many characters as it has, they didn't make it too busy and muddy up the story. No, I disagree. They definitely had too many characters. There wasn't enough time to explain to me, somebody that doesn't know these characters, who they were, where they came from. Literally, they ran onto a helicopter together, and I didn't know who they were supposed to be. In fact, the final character, a samurai like character, she runs onto the chopper at the last minute, and it's supposed to mean something to me, but as an audience member with no backstory on these characters, I didn't know what she was other than she wasn't punctual. So, half a star, weak plot, characters were just overall bland and had no substance. Although the Joker dominated most of the trailers, he is barely in the film at all, which is disappointing. I want my money back. Yeah, I'll agree with that. The trailers made it seem like the Joker was a far bigger piece of this. That's obviously the marketing ploy they were using. He's really, you could delete him from this and you would lose nothing. The plot doesn't need him. 4.5 stars. Honestly, I loved the movie, minus the Joker in this movie. Jesus, why? Just why? I don't understand why it gets a lot of hate, but meh, it's my opinion. Yeah, again, I don't get why it gets hate too. My theory is that it's the comic fans, and the fans wanted to see something trounce the MCU. They didn't get that, and it really angered them. As a normie, what they're calling a normie, this doesn't offend me in any way. I would have continued to watch this to the end. I wouldn't have said it was a 3 star, Academy Award winner or anything like that. But I wouldn't have wanted to walk out of the theater. I thought it was fine as a comic book movie. Half a star, absolutely rotten. I instantly lose respect for anyone that likes this movie. Again, that's why I'm reviewing this, because I see so much of that. I do follow other YouTubers and their movie reviews, oftentimes when I disagree with them. And I've just seen so many people just hate on reviewers that decided they didn't hate the Suicide Squad. I've seen it time and time again, and that's why I'm doing this, even though the movie is still pretty much a new movie. Half a star. Everything in this movie is bad. Can't think of a good thing to say. Jared Leto's Joker sucked. 3.5 stars. Would have been good if less studio involved. I don't know about that one way or the other. 2 stars. When you have nothing to do, it's okay to watch. Bad storytelling. Leto is a joke as Joker. Ha ha ha. Nothing good to see here. 4 stars. This movie was just awesome when it came out. It had one of my favorite characters in it. It was the Joker. Since childhood, I liked the character of Joker. The movie was just great for me, and I would like to see a continuation of that movie. The movie also had different characters in it whom I also liked. And it would be very interesting for me to see how the story continues. The main idea hidden was the friendship which they gained through hard times and that they faced together. This sounds like almost somebody in 7th grade that was forced to write this as a book report or a short essay by their beginner English. Their English teacher assigned this to them as an essay. That's the way it comes across. It doesn't tell me much. 1 star. What was the objective again? Watching this felt like going to Bojangles and driving off and forgetting to ask for honey mustard. I was lost. DC hasn't been able to fully recover since Suicide Squad. Again, I get that sense that DC Universe fans were expecting this to prove something to the MCU, and they didn't get that, and man, are they mad. 5 stars. I'm honestly surprised at how low the score is. It's entertaining, great characters, and okay plot, but I don't think it was wrapped up properly. It was too quick and kind of felt like some things were skipped at the end, but overall, an entertaining movie. Yeah, I'll say it's not 5 stars. It was entertaining, but they didn't even attempt to explain the backstories on the characters. It was as though they expected you to know who they all were right off the bat, and I certainly did not. Half a star. Of no movie should be said that is trash, even if its message or characters are full of hate and morally irresponsible. On the other hand, this movie is really, really bad. A step down for blockbuster entertainment and superhero movies. This one doesn't even get closer to the blander ones like Ant-Man or the first two Thors. It doesn't really do anything. It is the most boring movie I have on DVD, and I also own The Tree of Life and Inside. Okay, well, if it's that boring, why did you buy the DVD? But maybe some people just go out and buy DVDs every Tuesday, and if it doesn't work out, they just put them in their collection and don't watch them again. That's not most people. Most people won't buy the physical medium anymore. This is 2019, this review. As of 2019, nobody buys physical media unless they like the product. I mean, we're past the days where you'll buy it and then find out if you'll like it. I don't believe this for a second. 2 stars. In my personal opinion, this movie has neither plot nor meaning. People watch this film only because of Harley Quinn, Margot Robbie. She plays a character role so well that you forget that it's her in front of the camera. But as it is appropriate to make a multi-budget film about Suicide Squad using only one of the roles to succeed, because of this strategy of production, they did not win any awards. So they're saying that Margot Robbie's portrayal as Harley Quinn was the only thing worthwhile, and they were attempting to have her carry the whole movie. I don't get that impression because otherwise they wouldn't have put Will Smith in it. If you see Will Smith's name on an action comic book movie, you know they're trying to make him the centerpiece of it. Of course, it didn't work either way. But I disagree on the Harley Quinn thing because they didn't try to explain how Harley Quinn became Harley Quinn. Yes, they did show her that she was a scientist or a lab worker or something before this, but you don't get a sense of how she went from that to all of a sudden the Joker has her turned into Harley Quinn. It doesn't make any sense. I didn't try to make sense of it when I was watching this. There just wasn't enough time given to any of the characters. 1 star. The F I just watched. Yeah, a WTF, in other words. 4 stars. Was well worth a watch. Half a star. What the hell is Delavine doing? I guess he's referring to the director. 2.5 stars. This felt more like a Deadshot movie than a Suicide Squad. And rather than making Deadshot a cool character, Will Smith turned him into this fluffy wannabe hero. Won't be watching again. Yes, I've heard this criticism before. Again, I didn't know anything about Deadshot. I know he's supposed to be a villain, right? But in this movie, he does come across as Will Smith, reflecting on his life in a shallow way and trying to be a good guy. So yeah, if he's supposed to be a villain, this definitely was not a villain that we got in this movie. 2.5 stars. Based on the material it tries to follow, I actually think it's a good popcorn flick, to be honest. It's as stupid as it gets, but it doesn't take itself serious. Oh, not even close. It's a fun watch if you have nothing else to do, but again, don't expect this movie to be something extraordinary. It's so dumb it ends up being fun for one sitting when you also have some beer with you. Sure, people bash the hell out of this movie, but there's nothing to be disappointed about. It's a popcorn flick so dumb and messy, just like its source material. Well, that's going to really rub the DC fanboys mad about that because they'll tell you the source material is some of the most important stuff they've ever laid their eyes upon. So I can just imagine the seething anger when they see that final line of that review. But I largely agree with this reviewer. This is from a normie, somebody that's not into the Suicide Squad comic. This came across as just a fun popcorn flick, but I wouldn't give it quite 3 stars. It could have characterized at least 2 or 3 of them better. Then it could have been 3 stars. I still say 2.5. 4 stars. In my opinion, Suicide Squad is a good film. It's not the best movie, but just a good film. Sure, it has some flaws here and there, like showing a character that barely has any screen time or the Joker not being the main villain of the movie, but instead Enchantress being the main villain, even though the trailers looked like Joker was going to be the villain. But overall, it's still a good film, and I cannot wait to see Harley's chapter in Birds of Prey. Okay, again, people don't like being, tricked into seeing a movie. The trailers kind of implied that Joker was going to be the big bad, and then they got this Enchantress thing. So yeah, I can see how it rubbed people wrong. 1 star. This film is atrocious. Jared Leto in particular plays the most boring and mundane version of the Joker I have ever seen. Horrible directing, brutal score, and even worse script. All around a very bad film. I'm not sure what the hell they were thinking. Um, to me, it comes across as they were trying to make a movie trailer into a movie, and they thought that would work. Maybe they had seen Guardians of the Galaxy and its sequel one too many times and thought that in a lazy way they could just like crank out the same type of thing. It didn't work. 2 stars. It gets worse with every watch. The most frustrating part is there's a decent movie buried in there somewhere. I'll largely agree. 1 star. Terrible plot and the amount of characters they had weren't fleshed out enough. Agree completely. 1.5 stars. The worst editing in a movie I have ever seen. The movie jumps from scene to scene with absolutely no rhyme or reason. The story makes no sense. The characters are either idiots or made to act like idiots, and the action is okay at best. Will Smith and Margot Robbie deliver great performances, but it's not enough to save this movie. You can easily tell this movie had to go through so many reshoots, given all the post-production nonsense that went on in response to the train wreck that was Batman versus Superman. Wow, that's going to hurt some fanboys. A lot of the people out there that I do respect their opinion on most other things, they really think that Batman versus Superman and Man of Steel are like great cinematic masterpieces. I saw them both in the theater and I was disappointed. Particularly Man of Steel disappointed me because I was expecting so much and it just felt completely bland and too long to me. Um, I guess if you're just satisfied with an endless action scene with superheroes punching each other, then that's fantastic. But most of us, even halfway comics fans, we need to see some kind of compelling story with some tension. We didn't get that in Man of Steel or Batman versus Superman. Batman versus Superman in particular is a train wreck. Now I know I've already got the blood boiling on the DC fanboys, but I'm sorry. Um, it's just I think Batman versus Superman is worse than this movie. Let's move on. 5 stars. Best movie. Loved Harley Quinn and loved the action. Half a star. A bland, overhyped mess. Yeah, the trailers really promised a lot, didn't they? 2.5 stars. Extended cut. Not the worst comic book film ever made. Fantastic Four can carry the legacy, but not a good film either. The editing is so atrocious and the story is the definition of mediocre. Having said that, the cast is near perfect in their respective roles. The action set pieces are decent, and the soundtrack isn't too bad either. An average movie worth your time if you stumble upon it late at night with nothing else to do. Just make sure you don't pay for it. You know what? I agree with that completely. I also agree with the stars. 2.5 stars. 5 stars. I loved it. Hell, I'm watching it now. I wish I could get more Leto as the Joker, but we don't always get what we want. And you have 5 stars, really? Maybe you have like posters of Leto on your walls, maybe one from this movie and another from Alexander if he was on a poster. I don't have anything against Jared Leto, but most all of his movies to me are forgettable. Really, they are. 1.5 stars. Jared Leto is trash. Story is trash. 5 stars. The movie was absolutely amazing, and Maggie as Harley Quinn is awesome. She's the best Harley Quinn I've seen. I'm excited for her new movie, Birds of Prey. Personally, I don't know anything about Birds of Prey. I don't know anything about the backstory of Harley Quinn. Therefore, I think it's fine if the movie makers go ahead and just create a new backstory and origin for her. Again, maybe that angers comic book fans, but what have you got to lose? 1 star. An utterly boring flick with nothing to offer. I don't think it's utterly boring. I just think that don't pay for this, like one reviewer said. If you can watch this for free or you already paid for whatever service you can get it delivered on, more power to you. 5 stars. A good movie. Just it would have been better if Riddler was probably in it. I don't know about that. Riddler is probably even less well known to normies than the Joker, and certainly if you did the Riddler like what Jim Carrey's version from Batman and Robin, then this would have been like fun to laugh at, but I don't know if that's better than this. 5 stars, not English. 4.5 stars. I think it definitely needs a sequel. More Joker and Harley with the same director, crew, and everything. This movie was great. I can hear people's heads exploding over that one. Half a star, worst DC comic movie of all time. 3 stars, why does DC strike out always with casting? Everyone else is good, but Jared Leto is not a Joker. Even if he is an okay actor, you ruined the Joker look. Harley is spot on, though. Give us more Harley. I think teenage boys enjoy Harley Quinn because she's sexed up, right? Now, I don't know if she's sexed up in the comics, but she certainly is in this movie, but she's too shallow to be interesting. 5 stars, it's a masterpiece. 5 stars, fun, original, and entertaining movie, doesn't deserve the hate. 1 star, this movie was rushed and it shows. The plot could have been written by a children and I wouldn't even have known the difference. Will Smith is playing Will Smith. Harley Quinn looks like a teenage prostitute. And the Joker, good lord, don't get me started. What could have been a good adaptation of Assault on Arkham ends up being a cheap blockbuster movie. I largely agree. Will Smith plays himself in a lot of movies. You could almost reduce Will Smith to a character actor because he plays the character of Will Smith. A lot of actors are getting away with this nowadays. I'm not sure why. 1.5 stars, 1.5 to 2. What was this? I mean, it was all this strangeness executed well, badly. We saw people eating food like it was bad food. Most people to all survived a helicopter crash. Honestly, the DCEU didn't get good until 2017. I'll agree with the bar scene, just as a straight up regular normie audience member. They wasted a lot of time with them at the bar, and I guess they thought it would be entertaining and they would have some kind of chemistry, but they didn't seem to. And so the movie plot just ground to a halt with them in a bar. That was pretty bad just from a normie's point of view. 4 stars. The script has sinned in some ways, but the cast is amazing. Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn is one of the best characters of recent times. No, maybe if you're a teenage boy. 1.5 stars, Spanish. 4 stars, panned by critics and fans. This anti-superhero blockbuster based on DC Comics supervillains battling a mystical sorceress wreaking havoc at Midway City is nonetheless one hell of a party, bunged up with giddy fun, delectable screwballs, and eye-popping action. Well, see, that's the thing that does bring up one problem for me as a normie that doesn't know much about these characters. They are supposed to be super villains. They're villains. Suicide Squad is supposed to be a squad of villains. But they don't come across as villains. They come across, yes, as goofballs, people with personal problems. They don't come across as villains or evil, and that's kind of confusing. 1 star, defending Jared Leto's Joker against Nicholson or Ledger's is like fighting 2 AK-47s with a stick. 1.5 stars. Despite a good performance from the cast, Suicide Squad is ultimately messy, both in script and direction, an utter waste of time. Suicide Squad is proof that sometimes, just sometimes, it is better to stop. 4 stars. You have to watch this movie with the right mindset. Are you looking for an action movie with a lot of pew-pew, decent acting and some jokes that you can watch after a day at work to shut your brain into standby mode? Then this movie is for you. Are you looking for a great piece of cinema with awesome character development and an amazing Joker? Then you should watch The Dark Knight. I enjoyed it. So that's kind of a backhanded slap to the fanboys. No, they weren't expecting either one of those. They were expecting something to slap the MCU down for them to prove that the DC universe could do it better and that the Marvel fanboys could be put in their place. But they didn't get that, and they're still butthurt. Yeah. 1 star, oh plot, it's like cheese with holes. 3 stars, let's pretend this never happened. 3.5 stars, this movie was actually pretty good. I loved it. I recommend it. 4 stars, returning to this movie after Captain Marvel and other default superhero movies, I admit it was not so bad after all. Well, I'll agree with you there. If you put this head to head with Captain Marvel, even though they're not in the same DC, one's in DC and one's in Marvel. If you did a crossover and you put Captain Marvel in the Suicide Squad, it is tough. I think Suicide Squad at least has more potential. Captain Marvel doesn't even have potential. If she did, the comics wouldn't be failures. You know, they've been rebooted 4 or 5 times in comic form, so that tells you something. This is better than Marvel, Captain Marvel in a lot of ways. Um, yeah, 1 star. This is the worst comic book movie ever. Again, no. Captain Marvel beats it already as being worse. 3 stars. It's okay for what it is. It's not good or bad. It just disappoints. The cast is very good, though. Half a star. Completely miscast Deadshot. Awful. Yeah, I'll take your word for it. I think he comes across as Will Smith, not as some comic book villain. 4.5 stars. Very amazing cast and motivation of characters. I'm not sure what movie they were watching. Half a star. Terrible, unrelatable characters. Weak plot full of holes. Cringeworthy character performances. To me, they weren't cringeworthy, but again, if I knew more about the actual DC characters, maybe they would have been. 4 stars. It felt a bit rushed with the team up, but honestly was very entertaining. The soundtrack was quite good too. I think this is a fan of trailers. As a trailer, as like a movie length trailer, this works. Again, it was made by a company that does trailers. Half a star. Characters were shallow. The plot, too, easily forgettable. Yeah, I largely forgot it. I remember they defeated this enchantress lady at the end, but that's about all I remember. Oh, and I remember one of the villains, one of the Suicide Squad members, was like a samurai with a mask or a painted face, and they were late to jump on the helicopter. Other than that, I don't remember a whole lot. 5 stars. Honestly, pretty underrated and not nearly as bad as people say it is. 3 stars. Love the idea, love the squad, love the actors, hate the movie. 5 stars. I really like and enjoy everything. I hope they do something like Avengers with more of Batman in Chapter 2. Well, you would get your wish with Justice League, and I'll probably be doing a rotten review of that because, yeah, it angers people just like this did. Not as divisively, but yeah, it wasn't the promised backhand to the MCU that they thought it would be. 3 stars. It's safe to say that most people were disappointed by this film. It had an amazing cast and a great potential, but even with a few great standout characters and cool moments, but even they couldn't save it. 3 stars. Before I watched this movie, I expected a really bad movie, but in my opinion, it wasn't terrible. Will Smith was good as Deadshot, and Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. Their characters are the ones that get more development throughout the movie. They don't really get development, none of them do. Continuing, they have an interesting backstory. No. Continuing, the pacing is good. One of the bad things is the villain and also the Joker. It's a completely different Joker from the comics and it doesn't work. His design is ridiculous. Another bad thing is that some characters get zero development. No, I disagree. None of the characters get any development. Half a star. Boring is the worst review I could give a movie. This movie deserves worse. I fell asleep midway towards the end, so I had to watch it twice, and every second scrapes by like a pine cone through the rectum. Also, they forgot to color grade it. Yeah, I kind of don't disagree. 5 stars, not English. 3.5 stars. Now, this is the first DCEU movie I can say was good and original. Wow, heads are exploding out there. 2 stars. A film that utterly lacked any substance. There was promise at the beginning with a great opening introducing us to the anti-heroes, which was awesome, and then nothing. Stranded such a talented cast fighting comical-looking goons and an anti-climax of a villain. The 2 stars are for Viola Davis and Margot Robbie, who gave their roles everything. Every other character is disposable and forgettable, and Jared Leto is the Joker. Let's say no more. 2 out of 5. 1 star. I can't believe someone got paid for writing the script. If I hear Will Smith say else one more time, I'm gonna lose it. 2.5 stars, not English. 1/2 star. Very poorly made. Could have been so much better. 3 stars. A film that failed to meet the huge expectations it had generated. The film is full of holes and unexplained things, but in general, it's a good movie of anti-heroes with a lot of action and many stupid and meaningless. Yeah, that kind of sums it up. Suicide Squad, 59% rotten. I'd say that's fair because it doesn't give me a bad feeling, but it doesn't stand out. It's just a forgettable superhero movie. The divisiveness is going to stay. It certainly didn't crush MCU. And I'm going to leave it at that for what it's worth. And I will see you on another episode of Rotten Reviews.